welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops.
And Omari Sanko for the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're always blessed to be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. If you are not listening to Wes and Blake Silverman on the Pin Down over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel, you absolutely should be, along with listening to Pistons Talk, Locked on Pistons, Order of the Blazing Horse, all of the great Pistons podcasts and content creators out there. But, of course, make sure you're subscribed to the Detroit Free Press, where you can read Omari and our guest Shawn Windsor's work, and the Motor City Hoops Substack, which is completely free. I have some off-season content over there. And then once we really get into actual off-season moves, I will try to do some video breakdowns over who the Pistons draft, sign for, trade, which, guys, is the theme of today's episode. Next week will be an NBA draft podcast. We're going to bring some of the guys from No Ceilings on for that. That one will be fully draft centric. I think that one will be a lot of fun. But today we ask you for your off-season plans. We will go through those. We will discuss them. And we brought on our good friend, Shawn Windsor of the Detroit Free Press, to do that with us. Shawn, how are you doing? Thoughts on the playoffs? Thoughts on the finals? Anything like that before we get into Pistons off-season talk?
Doing well. Always great to be with you guys. The finals have been fun. I'm probably like you two. I watch it with the idea of what would the Pistons look like on that floor against either one of those teams, and not just against those two teams, but just with that intensity, in that environment. You can feel that coming through the television. So that's kind of how I've watched it. And yeah, it's been fun. It's a fun mental exercise.
It's funny, O2, I watched those games and I don't mind the way the basketball is being played. Like, I don't mind the way the game is being officiated. As someone who doesn't care who wins or loses, I know some people think things are lopsided one way or the other, whatever. But just in general, I appreciate the physicality of the games and what that's requiring of these offensive players. I mean, I told Sam last night, the game still ended up, 115, 111. It's not like the offenses weren't able to score. And I find myself appreciating Jalen Brunson even more having to play through this physicality, appreciating OG Anunoby having to play through the physicality, Steph Castle, etc. So that's kind of been my takeaway, is I don't mind watching this kind of basketball, as physical as it is. And it's really impressive how some of these guys are able to go about their business, scoring grabbing a rebound is about impossible, Omari, in the finals because of how physical the play is.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed just watching Cat and Wemby, essentially arm wrestle every single possession. I mean, those guys are just locked to the full embrace all game. I mean, I've had an issue with the officiating. I know Mike Brown had an issue with the disparity in the second half, but when I'm just a casual onlooker, like you just watch it a bit differently. I mean, you're seeing physicality on both sides. You're seeing how they're allowed to be physical with guys like Brunson. Maybe a bit too physical. I did feel like Wemby got away with a one low blow in the first half, but I mean, it's been a ton of fun. I think these teams have been fun to watch go at it. I mean, they both have so many wings, so many guys who can do different things, two stretch fives. Like Cat's been, I think Wemby's close to equal, through this series, which has been fun. A lot to look forward to. Watching OG go crazy. It's been fun. It's been fun. I think I insert the Pistons into it. But at the same time, it's kind of been nice to kind of turn my brain off too and just watch hoops. Like maybe in the first half, I'm thinking that, but by the time it gets to a close game, I'm just enjoying basketball at that point.
So to that point, I think that leads us right into what we're going to do today, which is what, if anything, what are the plans for the Pistons this offseason to put themselves in this situation next season in a Eastern Conference Finals, potentially an NBA Finals. So we went to social media. We asked you guys to go ahead and make your offseason plans. I linked a website, frontofficenba.com, that a fellow Pistons fan had reached out to me about, and they are actually the person that built out that website. It definitely was not me, but it is a fellow Pistons fan that built that. And one thing I do want to put out there, they have told me, if you find a bug or something doesn't work exactly right, let me know and I will let them know, and then they will work on it. That's happened multiple times since the first time that, I tried it out, and I'd sent it to Omari and Wes early on. So let's get into this from Lasagna, I think, on Twitter. Here is the first scenario. We're going to trade up to draft Yaxel Lendeborg. We're going to trade Stu, Levert, Sasser draft picks for Trey Murphy, re-sign Tobias Harris and Javonte Green, sign CJ McCollum on the non-tax MLE. Here's how we're going to do this. I just want to go through this first, Omari, and then we can go back and revisit, like, what do we think it would take to get up to draft Yaxel Lendeborg? What do we think it would actually take to trade for Trey Murphy? So, Shawn, I'm going to read the final roster here. This is trading up for Yaxel, trading for Trey Murphy, signing CJ McCollum. This person's starting lineup would be Cade, Asar, Trey Murphy, Yaxel Lendeborg, Jalen Duren, with the backup of CJ McCollum, Duncan Robinson, Ron Hall, and Tobias Harris, Paul Reed. You would still have Danish, Javonte Green. The way I did the numbers, guys, you would be over the first apron and getting close to the second apron. So I think that is a major factor in this one. But O2, I'll start with you. What are thoughts of trading up for Yaxel Lendeborg, trading for Trey Murphy, signing CJ McCollum, and where that would leave the roster?
Doing all of that sounds really expensive. So I know we'll kind of look at the overall package after. I think that would pretty much exhaust all the resources, if not most of them, to do that. But on paper, it's a good lineup. Like I know Trey Murphy, probably is the guy that's just like the perfect mix of not on a crazy contract, young, fits exactly what this team needs, just as a scoring forward. And he's going to come up today a lot, I'm sure. But I mean, him and Yaxel, I think Yaxel's good. Do you feel good with him as your starting for next season? I'm not sure, because this plan means that you lose Tobias Harris. So maybe between Trey Murphy and, Yaxel, you feel pretty good about the four. And, obviously you still got a star. I don't think we mentioned Ron being traded in that. Maybe we did. Is Ron being traded in that?
Ron is not being traded in that. So we'll round back to...
Okay, so you still got some forward. So you're still putting that forward. Yeah.
You kind of alluded to... I think the big thing with this deal is you're probably going to end up giving up all of your draft capital to actually make these level of moves. And still be able to have the depth that this situation would allow you to have.
Yeah, and that's it. You adjust your main needs, and we'll get to the cost, but that is an all-in offseason. Like, you're planning on winning a championship as soon as next season if you go that route, which they probably want to do anyway. So as far as win next season, not go all that, but yeah.
So, Shawn, again, trade for Trey Murphy, trade up for Yaxel Lendeborg, sign CJ McCollum. Essentially, you're doing it by trading draft capital, not necessarily rotation players. You are trading Isaiah Stewart. You are trading Karis LeVert. So that puts Paul Reed as your primary backup big. I first want to ask you about Yaxel Lendeborg, because Will Smith here says, am I the only one who doesn't understand the Yaxel hype? What would where are you on Yaxel Lendeborg in terms of, his projection to the NBA, and kind of assuming I think he's definitely a lottery pick. Do you think Detroit should even be considering the draft capital it's going to take to move up to draft him?
So what would it take? A first round, probably? Is it one first round pick and their pick?
So historically speaking, which I don't know if that's the best thing to do, because first round picks are, I think the Rob Dillingham trade package would be somewhat close. I believe that was a future first and a pick swap, if I'm not mistaken. Now, again, I think the value of first round picks are going to change because of the new lottery system, but I think you're at least giving up 21 and a future first to go up that far.
Yeah, no, that makes some sense. I guess if there's a swap on top of that, there are a few things with him, with Lendeborg. One, well, first of all, he arrived in Ann Arbor a year ago, and they had to teach him how to practice. And he was 22, 21, 22. So, and to his credit, he bought in and learned. And so that, there's that. So he's going to have to do the equivalent of that at the NBA level. He's a goofball in a good way. Right. He's an endearing personality, but there are some questions about his seriousness off the court. And, Dusty May and his teammates addressed that during the season. And again, he showed he was willing to work. The thing that you love about him, though, is when he's on the court, his competitive spirit is really, really high. And to me, I mean, he was one of the best defensive players in college basketball last year. He's switchable. He can stay with guards. I mean, he was the key to me to that. Well, he had Mara. I mean, Morez Johnson was good down there and rim protecting too. But Mara was the key. It's a little bit like what we see with San Antonio. You know, I mean, it's not to that level, right? But Victor at the rim and then Castle on the perimeter. Lendeborg was kind of their Castle in a way. And so that would be worth it. Is the shooting going to translate? I mean, maybe if the shooting translates, he's a lot more than a lottery pick.
I just want to clarify. So in that trade that ended up being Rob Dillingham, that was all the way to 8th, which I'll be honest, guys, you may not have to go to 8 to get Yaxel, but I don't think he's lasting much longer than that. It wasn't a pick in that draft. So it was just a future first and a future pick swap. So if you got that deal, Detroit would still have pick 21. I guess you could give up 21 and then maybe it's only a pick swap in the future or something like that.
I was just going to finish that thought. I mean, to me, everything right now, and you don't want to be too much a prisoner of the moment, but San Antonio's young. You know, the Knicks aren't young like San Antonio, but you assume they're going to be competitive for a bit. We've seen what Boston's like. They're going to retool, you know, a little bit, but when they're healthy, you got to imagine guys that can be in that environment, in the finals environment, in the conference finals environment. And you got to have two-way guys. That's where the league is right now. We were talking about 115, 111 the other night, or last night, I guess. The level of skill and physicality and athleticism to score against those, it's incredible, the level of play that we're watching right now. So think about the draft in terms of that. Lendeborg, I think, is fine in that atmosphere.
I'm glad you brought it up. Sam and I talked last night on Game Theory. We got asked the question, what players in the 2026 draft do you think in their rookie season could play in the finals the way that Dylan Harper is? Maybe not the same role or impact, but we brought up Yaxel because he is older, he is physical, all of those things. Here's what I want to ask now, O2. This offseason plan, because we all agree to trade up to get Yaxel, to trade for Trey Murphy, we would all agree their first round pick is, I know they're giving up a bunch of draft capital. Would we all agree with that, right? Like they've traded as many first rounds as they can. They've traded a bunch of the second rounds. O2, you agree with that? Like they've pretty much gone all in regards to that.
Yeah. And I don't even know. And they also have like 15 second rounders they can include. But if you're getting Yaxel and Trey Murphy, to me, that says you exhausted all of your first rounders. And I don't know if you keep Ron out there. So,
Agreed.
I'll put that out there. Yeah.
I'm with him with Ron. Yeah. I don't think you keep him.
Okay.
Yeah,
so here's my two questions then around this idea. Because again, I don't think we have to specifically, I appreciate the work that everybody did to submit their offseason plans, but I think it's the general idea. So here's my question. First one, O2. Do you think this is the offseason to go this far over the tax into the first apron, getting close to the second apron, and exhaust all of your future draft capital to an extent? You can't even trade all of it, it's against the rules. But is this the offseason that they need to do that? Or is this the return that would make you comfortable doing that? That's my first question. Like, is this a little too aggressive?
If I'm giving up all of the picks and a young guy like Ron and sniffing the second apron, all of that, I'll probably want more than Trey Murphy, Yaxel, and CJ McCollum. And I don't even know if that's enough to even get all of those guys. Like, I don't think you get CJ for the non-tax MLE. Like, I just don't.
So that was my other thing was, I don't know that you get him for the non-tax MLE to come off the bench is the other part. Like, in this scenario,
you're paying him $15 million to come off of the bench, but he can go start somewhere for probably at least 20. To me, I think that's simultaneously a dream offseason and also unrealistic, right? Because it's going to require some finagling that's probably just not going to get done. But on paper, if Trey Murphy's your number 2 scorer, if you have CJ off the bench or a CJ caliber player off the bench, and Yaxel comes in and is a capable 2-way 4 off the bat, is that a team that could compete with this iteration of the Knicks, this iteration of the San Antonio Spurs? Maybe. I'm not quite there yet. Like, I think that's a good team, but I still think you're missing some things. You're going to miss Stu defensively. You're going to miss Ron as a wing defender. And what was that, ball handling, Shawn? Like,
yes.
you're still missing things.
You gotta be able to dribble. You guys have watched the finals.
So with Cade and CJ, you still and Danis, do you think that's probably close to cutting it? Because I also don't know if you could play CJ and Danis in a series like this for extended periods of time against San Antonio, for example, where the only guard you're giving up any size to is De'Aaron Fox, right?
look what they're rolling out. I mean, they're going with small lineups sometimes with Victor in the back, right?
Yeah.
With Fox, Harper, and Castle, and then sometimes who's out there? Vassell, maybe. Sometimes they go.
I think that was the 4 that it was the other night. It was Vassell and then Wembanyama.
And even Vassell can handle the ball a little bit, right? He's sort of a secondary guy. But you're talking about 3 ball handlers, and not only, and Fox is the only one who's not a two-way guy, but Fox can at least, you saw the way he got up and bothered Cat a little bit in game 3. I mean, he's a willing defender. I mean, right? He's always been a pretty good steals guy too, but that's just a different level. That's how you got to think about it. You got to think about two-way guys and guys that can handle the ball against that kind of pressure. The Spurs were extending their defense almost out to the half-court line, and the Knicks can do the same outside of Brunson, right?
So here's my final question on this one, and then we'll start moving through, and we'll have touched on some of these topics, so then we won't have to stay quite as long as we go through some of the other ideas. But in this scenario, Isaiah Stewart is traded. No other big man is brought in. Now, the person does say vet center. They don't give a name, but obviously, as we know, you're limited. Like, that's going to be a minimum deal or something like that. I guess my question to you, Shawn, is I don't know that I'm comfortable with a Jalen Duren, Paul Reed center rotation, or a Jalen Duren, Paul Reed, Tolu Smith center rotation. Like, I'm comfortable with it, but I think Paul Reed is in the perfect role right now. I guess my question is, how confident are you in Paul Reed being the exclusive backup center for this team if they need to move Isaiah Stewart? And Tolu Smith being the third big in that scenario then, or something like that?
I think the question is, what is Isaiah Stewart at this point, right? Because everybody insisted, including the general manager after the season, Trajan Langdon, the president of basketball, that he was healthy. And he said maybe he lost his wind a little bit when he was recovering from his injury late in the season, and maybe that explained it. But it's shocking to think about. He's 24, right, Omari? Is he 25?
I believe he's 25.
25. And he looks and moves that he did toward the end of the playoffs like he was 35. If that's Stewart moving forward, then yeah, I'm comfortable with Duren and Reed. But if Stewart's going to get back to how he was for most of the year and be one of the best rim protectors in the league, then I would not be comfortable. You would be missing a lot, as they missed. If Stewart were Stewart, they probably would have beaten Cleveland.
Okay, let's go to break. When we come back, we have another Trey Murphy plan. But again, we're just going to exchange some of the names and then a lot of the other conversations we've already had here. So we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll get to that one and then some other big names and ideas throughout the rest of the episode.
All right, we're back with segment 2. We still have a lot of ideas to get through here. I'm going to give this back to you, Bryce.
From Ryan Anton, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. I think it was essentially the same Trey Murphy trade as above. So that is Stu, LeVert, Sasser. Add in the draft capital that you think is necessary. One other note, guys. In general, I kind of just assume Jalen Duren on $35 to $40 million on his first year salary. Like whatever. I think all of these we're assuming Jalen Duren comes back on a deal around that. And then Asar Thompson's number doesn't really matter for 2026, but Asar Thompson is part of the team moving forward. So a lot of the same things, but here's the difference. So we get to talk about a couple different players. Kobe White on the non-tax MLE. I think that one is probably more reasonable in terms of what his market is going to be. So Shawn, you kind of mentioned the ball handling, the scoring, stuff like that. What are your thoughts on Kobe White coming in? Whether that's to start, whether that's him and Danis off the bench with Cade and Duncan still starting. What are your thoughts on adding Kobe White on a non-tax MLE?
I like his energy. I like the fact that he can make difficult shots. He's not a starter. I don't think he can be a starter, not with the NBA. But he could finish probably some games if he's hot or making shots. I mean, we saw Jordan Clarkson come in and make a couple of shots. Now, he can't stay on the floor for the Knicks because he's for too long because, again, he's not a two-way guy. But yeah, no, that's the kind of player that you got to have in the rotation. Exactly the kind of player. Not just the ball handling, but the tough shot making.
So, Omari, your thoughts on Kobe White? Again, my opinion is this is probably a little bit more reasonable. And then Ryan also says Allen Graves in the draft. So that gets us a that would get us a different draft prospect to talk about here. No, and I think in Allen Graves' scenario, listen, he may go higher than 21, but I think for Ryan in this scenario, he was thinking that Allen Graves would be available at 21. This is the freshman. He's actually a redshirt freshman out of Santa Clara, a kid that didn't even start for Santa Clara, but the analytics love Allen Graves because of his steal rate, his 3-point percentage. To me, he is a guy that you're hoping is going to be able to play at the 4, maybe able to give you some small ball 5 minutes. He's not crazy big or athletic. I'm also not super in love with Graves either, as Piston Talk says, but I understand the idea behind him. So O2, the idea of signing Kobe White and then, anything thoughts on Allen Graves?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kobe White's fan. And I also think you probably get a similar level of impact and production from him and CJ next season. But like you said, it's probably more realistic to get Kobe White on that $15 million a year non-tax MLE compared to CJ, just because you're just dealing with different bodies of work. But I thought we saw that in the play-in a little bit with Kobe White. This is the ability to step up and hit really big, really tough shots. Which if there's something the Pistons could have used last season, it was a tough shot maker who could and they didn't really struggle to close games, right? So, it's not like it's an issue that reared its head a lot in the regular season, but especially in the playoffs. I mean, it's just so many moments where you just need somebody who could just kind of generate something out of nothing. And him and Allen Graves, you probably don't expect Allen Graves to be a huge contributor next season, but he does give you some depth.
I would assume not, yeah.
Yeah, but he does give you some long-term depth at power forward. But more so than Graves, I think Kobe White's pretty much exactly what they need as a secondary ball handler and potential primary scorer next to Cade.
Ryan says he was thinking as a 6-man with Cade, Asar, Murphy, Tobias Harris, and Duren starting. Let's go to some other names here because we are 25 minutes in already and have only really gotten through the Trey Murphy stuff. So I will speed us up. This is from Aaron Siegel. I apologize. Essentially, this is the Kawhi Leonard trade. So Stu, Ron Holland, Karis LeVert, Tolu Smith, and a first-round pick. Again, we mentioned the Jalen Duren contract. Tobias back. So this puts you over the tax, but under the first apron. So the starting lineup then would be Cade, Danis, Asar Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Jalen Duren. You would still have Duncan Robinson and Tobias Harris off the bench. But then it would be like Sasser, Paul Reed, Javonte Green. You would be needing real minutes and rotation from Shawn. So first, I want to get your thoughts just on Kawhi Leonard. Let's say it's salary match and a single first-round pick or something like that. Let's say I have no idea what Kawhi Leonard's trade value is. I honestly have no idea how you can even predict that. But just your thoughts on Kawhi Leonard.
If Cade Cunningham were 30, I would do it. And he'd been pushing and not getting there and you needed, then I would do it. I just don't, and I get that he finished the season last season. That's the risk with him, right? That's the risk with him. I mean, he's, as much as he's slowed he's still fine defensively. He's nowhere near the player he was, obviously, even when he was in Toronto, let alone San Antonio defensively. But he's still a world-class bucket getter. And that's tantalizing. And it's really something to think about. And he would immediately be their best scorer, probably, right? I mean, he can still get to his spots and pull up from wherever he wants. And his 3-point shooting is great.
I think in this scenario, Cade is still going to score a lot of points, but Kawhi probably ends up being the leading scorer on your team, right, Omari? Which I will just say this. I've said it before. I've on the record from the time. I don't know Cade Cunningham whatsoever. I have no clue. I personally don't think that Cade would have an issue with that. I don't think Cade would have an issue being a 24, 10, and 7 guy and Kawhi averaging 26 or 27 points. Cade will still be the best player on the team, O2. He just won't be the leading scorer. I have no issue with that. I don't think Cade Cunningham would, but what are your thoughts on the Kawhi Leonard idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from a pure talent standpoint, Kawhi's probably as close to a best case scenario as you could get to. I mean, we watched him put up 50 against the Pistons last season
55,
in a very vintage
55 Omari.
In a very, very
I don't remember much, but I remember that one for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, and that night was, as good as any. That might have been his career high, honestly. Maybe he's gotten 60 at one point, but yeah, on both ends, it doesn't get much better. The only question, obviously, is just the age and the injury history. He did play 65 last season, and if you're getting 65 games of Kawhi Leonard, maybe you do it. Maybe that suffices, if you assume that also comes with playoff availability. But you have to assume things. And like Shawn said, if Cade were 30, that's one thing. You can afford that type of risk a bit more. But do you want to leverage the future on Kawhi when he's 35 next season? And, it may be a season he plays 40 instead of 65. I think that sidetracks things pretty substantially. So I like everything about Kawhi except the price and the age, which obviously are two pretty substantial reasons for pause.
Well, and Blog Pistons bring up another great point. Kawhi Leonard's on a 1-year deal. So like on top of the investigation or whatever and all of that and what the trade is, like, are you getting him for 1 year or... Yeah, I don't know Pistons talk. Don't know what the investigation is going to end up saying, but there are these other contract things that go along with it. Shawn, you wanted to add to that before we moved on to another part of this.
Just realistically, I mean, it's hard to sometimes separate the peak of a player from the recent history. He hasn't had a playoff moment since when? I mean, seriously.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto. I mean, that's 19. So we're talking about almost 7 years, And the few times he did get to the playoffs, even in the play-in game against the Warriors, he was fine, but not necessarily memorable. I'm not saying he would never be again, but at some point, year after year after year after year, when somebody isn't doing it when it matters the most, you got to sort of say, okay, what's happening?
Okay, so I shortchanged him a little bit. His first couple years in LA, they did get out of the first round. And he had some games. And then so I would say 2021, he had a 45-point game against the Mavericks in the first round in a game 6 victory. And then they ended up winning in 7. And then he must have gotten injured in the next round. Okay. O2, did you have one more thing you wanted to add to that before I moved on?
The only thing that came to mind is if they were to void his aspiration.
Yep.
Aspiration contract, I would also think that would probably come with a suspension. I don't think it would just be like, oh, Pistons, you're screwed. His contract's void, and now he can go sign the veteran minimum to go play with LeBron or whatever. That probably wouldn't happen. But also, I think it's also impossible to project that. And I think if the Pistons thought there were a chance that could happen, then I would probably remove him from the picture altogether. I mean, that's a giant TBD, though.
I think this is the only scenario that outwardly suggested Danis Jenkins in the starting lineup. I would like to get your quick thoughts on that, Shawn, in terms of whether that means you use Duncan Robinson to cut costs to sign somebody else, whether that means Duncan Robinson just goes to the bench or whatever. Like, just your general thoughts of an offseason scenario where Danis Jenkins ends up being the plan to be the starter in the backcourt next to Cade Cunningham.
I mean, if you're not going to go out and get another 2, right? Essentially, because I would like to see him start. And I think the coaching staff got to that point in the playoffs. His ball handling was just too important. And as he settled in a little bit, now it took a while, right? He had to settle in at home, and then he had to settle in on the road, and he had to figure out that, the late in Orlando, we saw him start to figure it out in game 6 a little bit, and then more in game 7, and then again, step back early in Cleveland. But assuming he's going to keep on that trajectory and the way he works, I mean, why not? And not only that, he plays both ends.
Okay, we get some new names here. I think these ones are really fun. And I've seen one of them mentioned in the chat. So from Michael Dompierre, I don't know. I know he's here, so he can correct me if I'm saying this wrong. So he mentions over the cap. I think every scenario that we're going to talk about today is over the cap. There are under the cap paths for this team. It is a little bit more difficult, but we can talk more about that later on. He has them signing Colin Sexton to the non-tax MLE. So Colin Sexton is a new name here on the non-tax MLE. We've mentioned a few different names, CJ McCollum and Kobe White. Now we get a Colin Sexton idea. And then I think this is the really fun one. So O2, I want to get your thoughts on Sexton first, but then the trade for Cam Johnson. And I think this is one that does have a lot of synergy. And so the trade is essentially you trade for Cam Johnson, and especially if you take back Zeke Naji, I think you even have to give up less because you're taking that money off their hands as well. I don't know what kind of draft capital it would really even take because they're going to be so motivated to keep the other guys. So thoughts on Sexton on the non-tax MLE and Cam Johnson on what we'll just say is a low asset. You're not going to have to give up a bunch of assets or whatever to acquire him.
Colin Sexton, I mean, I'll put him in the same category as like a Kobe White or a CJ McCollum. Just very, very proven bucket getter. Could play with Cade could play without Cade. Probably gives you a lot of what you get from like Dennis Jenkins. So maybe I'm a little bit less enthused because of that. Plus, I think he's a little bit smaller than both of those guys too. But it also may not take the full $15 million MLE to get him. If it still takes 12 or 13, I don't know what you're going to do with that leftover $2 million.
I agree with this, by the way. I think there's a world where you have enough left that you could do something else with it.
Yeah, but you have enough to do something, potentially. So price dependent. I think I like the idea. With Cam Johnson, Mr. Ray mentioned it, but it's just the injury thing with him. Are you going to get him for 65 games? Or are you going to get him for 45 games? Like, what's that going to look like? He played 54 last year, 57 the year before, 47 the year before that. So from an availability standpoint, that doesn't quite get it done. If you're more so taking a flyer on him, if you're not giving up a lot of capital, and I think you could do a lot worse because when healthy, like he can defend and he can really, really, really shoot it. Like that gives you another elite shooter with Duncan Robinson. But the availability concern to be probably makes me less of a fan of giving up any type of asset for Cam Johnson.
All right, Shawn, I think I know where you're going already because I can read the private chat. So your thoughts on both of these players, but specifically Cam Johnson.
Okay, I'll do Colin Sexton first. I'm with you.
Yeah.
On the Jenkins idea. Just think about Jenkins this way, and not to you necessarily, Bryce, Mr. Hoop guy. There's a simplicity to what he does that I think is just going to continue to evolve as he gets more confident, and it's going to translate, as I think we saw, to even higher leverage situations. That guy can stop and pull up wherever he wants. Now, sometimes he gets too deep into the paint and tries to finish over length, and that's an issue. He's got to figure that out. But just in terms of a stop, pop, pull up, jump shot, that's a pretty good weapon. And I think that's something that it could, and he's got a nice shot. And I just don't think you want to give up. I mean, I don't know. I think he's got more potential with that than Sexton. Sexton is better maybe a little bit in transition. He's a one-man break. And I appreciate that he's a little quicker maybe, but I don't know that he's any more athletic. And maybe he runs a team a little bit better. But I'm with you. I'd rather have take the gamble that Jenkins keeps getting better and no on Cam Johnson. It's not just the injury history. Yes, he can shoot. You're right, Omari. What did he shoot at 43% last year? You don't feel him. You just. When's the last time you felt him? And it's been too long for that. I mean, maybe when Phoenix made a run to the finals, right? And then he was in those. He was everybody's darling when he was in Brooklyn. Oh, we need Cam. A lot of Pistons fans wanted him like they want Markkanen now or Michael Porter Jr. now, right? He was kind of one of those names. I just don't think you feel him enough to really make him too much of a centerpiece.
All right, we got another one here, and then we'll go to break. I think this will time up really nice. So this was from over on Blue Sky from V Prasad. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounce names here, but some new names, and these names are fun, depending on what Milwaukee does. But the idea here was trade for Ryan Rollins and then sign Sandro Mamukelashvili on the non-tax MLE. So thoughts on that? I think Ryan Rollins would require more than maybe what the idea was. I don't know. Again, I think it depends on where Milwaukee ends up with all the Giannis stuff and if they want to build around Ryan Rollins or if they think they're okay going ahead and moving him on to somebody else. But this would give you a starting lineup of Cade, Ryan Rollins, Asar Thompson, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Jalen Duren, and then you would still have guys like Danis Jenkins, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, Tobias, especially if you just, because here's the thing with Ryan Rollins, you don't really have to match salary. Like he makes so little that you don't have to trade one of these other rotation players to match the money. So O2, just let's say again that we don't hate what the trade would take to get Rollins. Just thoughts on adding a player like Ryan Rollins and then also Mamukelashvili.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of both of those players. Ryan Rollins, I mean, he had a terrific season last year. He's, in my mind, he's the early favorite for 2027 Most Improved Player, which that's an award that always seems to kind of lag behind a year for whatever reason. He probably should have got more votes for it this year, to be honest. But I like the idea of Ryan Rollins a lot. He actually defends, which, is a big difference from some of the other guards we've discussed. Like, he can really defend. And he's from Detroit, so I think anytime you can bring a Detroit kid back home, like, that's always amazing. Sandro
Mamukelashvili.
Mamukelashvili. See, that's one of those names where it's like, I'm not going to practice it until, I really have to get it down.
I've been practicing for like 18 months now, 2 years over on Game Theory. And so.
Mamu. Yeah, I mean, stretch five, like rebounds. Like, he is the type of stretch five, like on paper, it feels like this team has kind of needed for a couple of years. They haven't really had a true stretch five since the Kelly Olynyk. I remember the one season they were playing Gallo at the five a little bit. I feel like it was a long time ago. It was like 2.5 years ago. That would be a good pickup. Like, I'm sure you could probably get him with that non-tax MLE, $15 million. And that's not a splashy offseason, but I do think that's an offseason where you get measurably better. And I think just the sheer impact of those two guys, as good as Nuck has been, like, I think I'll go into this season thinking that their free agent, slash trade haul was probably a little bit stronger than last year's, especially since they fit such strong positional needs. So yeah, Ryan Rollins and Mamu, I think both those guys fit well here.
I would just say, I think depending on what the trade for Rollins would be, I like this idea a lot. I've also thought that Mamu wouldn't take all of the non-tax MLE. I do wonder if he's a guy you could get on like 10 million and you would have 5 million left to go sign another rotation player of some kind. But Shawn, your thoughts on the pairing of Ryan Rollins and Sandro Mamukelashvili?
God, like Sandro, the stretchability. I mean, the 3-point shooting for sure. Any kind of big that can stretch out. I mean, just thinking about Duren and Thompson, and who if they're on the floor with one of those two guys, any kind of frontline guy that can step out and shoot is a great thing. Ryan Rollins, this is going to sound crazy because stylistically they're different, but his bucket getting ability it was funny. We were talking about CJ McCollum at the top of the show. There's a little bit of that. Rollins might be a touch more athletic, but he's a tough shot maker. And Golden State missed out on that one, didn't they? Omari knows that as a closet gold stick. but
Steph guy specifically.
Yeah, Steph guy. Your whatever, your pleasure watching the Warriors is going to go as soon as he's gone, right? You won't ever watch them again.
Probably not.
No, but Ryan
Baron
Rollins,
Davis back in the day too, to be fair.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Ryan, he would be a great fit, and he'd be right. Tough shot maker. That's and obviously can handle the ball.
Okay, we got like 4 more of these. I think we have 1 or 2 in the chat that we can go to as well. So we'll try to get to all of those. Again, some more new names and ideas. In particular, a different kind of idea coming out of the break. We'll get into those right after this.
All right, back with segment 3. We've got about 19, 20 minutes here, and we're going to try to rapid fire some of these. I know we still have quite a few left, so Bryce, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so this is from Nick Chuck, and his idea was essentially draft at 21. I think he brought up potentially the Cam Johnson, Zeke Naji trade idea from above, but more so, his idea was wait till the trade deadline. Somewhat run it back, but keep your flexibility to maybe make a swing at the deadline. Shawn, I'm curious what your thoughts on that would be. Like slow play this a little bit. Maybe you see what kind of development you get from a Jalen Duren, see what kind of development you get from a Sar Thompson offensively, maybe what you end up with at 21. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't hate that idea. I know a lot of fans would probably not like that idea at all, but I really don't hate that because let's be frank. Again, not to keep going back to the finals and the conference finals and what we've watched, but the Pistons aren't going to compete for anything if Duren and Thompson don't come along for the ride, right? That's the whole key. Obviously, they got to hit the pieces around it, and you got to build out around it, and it's got to make sense, and that may take some time. Look at the Knicks kind of cycling through till they finally got their mix. I mean, the Spurs are an outlier. They're one of the youngest teams in the history of the finals, and they've got a new kind of player, so it's not really fair to compare what they're doing. An unusually mature rookie and a second-year guy who looks like a 10-year all-star, that they're different. So the Pistons, it's up to Duren and Thompson to develop, and then obviously they got to maximize those 3 with the pieces around. So I don't hate that at all. You could even take a slight swing on the draft. I mean, I'm curious what you guys think of Morez Johnson. I watched him up close. He's tough. He defends. He's got nice form on his 3-point shot. You can see a shot down the road. Can you afford to say, hey, let's give him 2 years?
So my thing with Morez is I just think he's going to end up probably in the lottery or right outside. Like, I just wonder what it's going to take to go get him. I don't think Morez is going to be there at 21, but I don't know what it's going to take to move up to where they would need to go get him.
He would fit, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if I think he would be incredible defensively, especially. I think with Merez, it really comes down to the offensive skill. Like, is he able to eventually space the floor a little bit? And why I like the idea of a Merez or a Sandro or whatever is it does give you a little bit of flexibility in terms of your big man rotation moving forward. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he's ready. Maybe we do have to make a tough decision with Isaiah Stewart at the deadline, or something like that. It just gives you some versatility there with that. O2, thoughts on maybe waiting till the deadline and then maybe going a little bit more with a big move then?
Yeah, I think the reality is that you might get more for your money at the deadline than you will this offseason. And I think the best thing you can do this offseason, and this is the thing that kills a lot of teams that are trying to win a championship, is they just overpay for the wrong guy, whether that's because of injury or because of fit, like whatever it may be. Like, once you give up those draft picks, once you give up that cap flexibility, that's it. You're not going to get that back. And the teams also are not in the position that like a Spurs or the Thunder are, where they've got like a surplus of picks that they can play with. So the Pistons really have to get that move. I don't think there's really going to be a second chance, if you don't identify the right player to invest that in. So I think you could thread the needle. I think maybe you could make a smaller move this offseason to address your need for a 4. Maybe you're able to use the non-tax MLE to, get some more ball handling. And it's not quite like that all-in star move, but you're just setting chips for the deadline, essentially. And I kind of just see this window as like by next offseason, right? I think whether you do it this summer or into the season around the deadline or whatever, you can still hit on that window to, gear up and make a run for the Eastern Conference Finals or beyond. Like you said, I think fans would be disappointed to see them do something smaller and then kind of set their chips for a big deadline swing. But I think the reality is that what they're looking for could just be more available at the deadline, but you have teams that thought they were going to win something who clearly aren't at that point. So either way, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It just depends on how much value you're going to get.
Okay, I'm going to split this next one up. I'll have one of you talk about one of the players, and then O2, I'll have you talk about the second player. Our guy, Harry Morose from Order of the Blazing Horse, brings up the idea of trading for Cason Wallace. Shawn, thoughts on, again, I don't even want to begin to throw out the value here because I don't know, but just assume that you were okay with the value that it would take. Thoughts on adding Cason Wallace? I think to me, the bet here would be he has more to give in a bigger role than what he gets in Oklahoma City Thunder, but curious your thoughts.
Again, I like his defense. I mean, I shouldn't say because I know I haven't talked about him. That's just where I'm going to lean. It's how the Pistons are built, and I think they need to double down on that. And that's just where the league is kind of headed. Don't know how long this trend's going to last, but he's really good defensively, and he can make some shots. So that, to me, that's what you're banking on. It's that there's more to give offensively, right? Because we see his ability to get up into guys, and he would fit right in here, obviously.
So, O2, the second part of this idea was sign and trade Peyton Watson, and the Pistons would send out Isaiah Stewart and Marcus Sasser. I assume that works. Obviously, it depends on the contract. I'll be honest, guys, I've learned a lot about the cap over the last few years and can do a lot of things. The sign and trade thing still is very, very confusing to me, but let's just say the money works there. Thoughts on, I think just generally the idea, there's again going to be some Nuggets synergy here because it sounds like they're moving one of Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, or Cam Johnson. They're not going to be able to keep all three of those guys. So the thought of bringing in Peyton Watson of those three.
Yeah, I mean, I like Peyton Watson. I don't know if I like the idea of trading Isaiah Stewart for him because I just think Stu's one of those guys where like people are like, well, he didn't play well in the playoffs and this and that. Sometimes guys just don't play well in the playoffs. We see how elite of a defender he is. I think losing Stu and then going to Jalen Duren and Paul Reed solely as your rim protectors, you're going to feel that difference next season. Like you just are. I think the intensity that Stu gives you, in 20 to 25 minutes a night was a big part of their success last season. So, I like the idea of a Peyton Watson type player, 6'8", really shot the ball well last season. Not necessarily trading Stu for that type of player, but to interest Denver, it probably would have to be something that they don't currently have. And I think you could play Stu and Jokic together. Like, you could do a whole lot of stuff and he would be great for him. So I don't know about the price, but I do like the player.
All right, Shawn, we'll move on to one more big name here. This is from Ben Chulik. Stewart, Robinson, and LeVert plus draft capital for Kyrie Irving and Max Christie. Then essentially you kind of run it back. Ben had them under the tax still. Whenever I did it on my sheet, I had them barely over the tax, which also means you could probably get under the tax at the deadline. I know people don't want to hear about the tax. I will just say, I think Detroit should probably try to avoid the tax for one more year before they get really expensive and have no ability to avoid it whatsoever. That's just my opinion. More so, Shawn, I think the name here obviously is Kyrie Irving. And so I'm very interested to get your thoughts on, again, let's just assume value that you're comfortable with the idea of bringing Kyrie Irving to Detroit. 2 years left on his deal, player option on year 2. Coming off the ACL.
Yeah, absolutely not. Again, he hadn't had a moment in a long time. But look, if you want to help sell more tickets, I mean, he's one of the most entertaining basketball players who's ever lived. He's obviously great at the end of games. He's probably the best small man finisher in the history of the game. I mean, there's a lot to like about him, but injury issues, I don't know. It'd be to me, it's if there were more failure here in Detroit, then you'd say, oh, let's take a swing. That's what Cleveland did with James Harden. Harden's probably a little bit further past his prime than maybe a lot further past his prime, obviously, than Irving. I don't even know if Irving's past his prime. We'll see how he is post ACL, but no, I don't think. I mean, it'd be fun, but no.
Here's what I will say quickly. I do think Kyrie is a great on-court fit if you can say, like, hey, he's going to be healthy and be the player that we've seen. But I understand everything you're saying. The only thing with the ACL that is, he did give it 18 months. You know, like, he's not one of these guys that's trying to return super fast from it. There's a lot of risk in it. O2, your thoughts on the idea of Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, kind of just the same category as Kawhi. Just the idea of him. I mean, not even the idea of Kyrie, like just knowing who Kyrie is as a player would be pretty phenomenal for this team. You know, I think if you're looking to add a ball handler that can hit big shots, I mean, he's one of the greatest at it of all time. You know, he's always thrived playing next to the Cade Cunningham types, whether that's LeBron or Luka, you know, guys who are just going to dominate the ball. So yeah, great. You know, I don't know about him coming off of a pretty serious injury. And I mean, he's got to be 33 or 34 now too, kind of like Kawhi. So those things kind of scare me off. And I don't know what the structure of that deal looks like. Do I want to give up anything of value for Kyrie potentially and not get Kyrie? Not really. You know, and then also I think there's the defensive side of that too. Like, at least with Kawhi, you're getting like both sides, right? You know, you're going to have to hide Kyrie, and that changes the calculus a bit too. Personally, I probably wouldn't go that route just because of the age and injury. But if you could get, you know, Kawhi like 5 years ago, then 100%, right?
Okay, I'm going to throw out a name. So Danny gave us the Peyton Watson sign and trade idea. Rui Hachimura, draft Christian Anderson, kind of bring some other guys back. Duran, Tobias, Herter, Javante. I think he must have traded Ron Holland in the Peyton Watson, LeVert, Duncan. But more than anything, just get your guys' thoughts on Rui Hachimura here. Rui Hachimura is quite literally the best three-point shooter in NBA playoff history, with anybody that's taken more than 100 threes, according to percentage, at least. But Shawn, just your thoughts on Rui Hachimura. Could come in, play that 4-man role, knock down shots, add a little bit of size, all of that. So just in general, your thoughts on Rui Hachimura.
Again, a player that I like more in theory.
Sure.
He just, like, you want to think certain things about him. And you're right. You just mentioned his size. He can shoot the ball, but he fades too much. He disappears too much. It's not that he's not trying hard. I would never say that about a player. You don't, I mean, unless it's so obvious. But yeah, it just doesn't quite. Good rotation piece, I guess.
O2, I want to get to this one, and then I'm actually going to throw mine out there just to see what you guys think. So, FlyMonk321, thank you. Appreciate you. Trading Duncan, LeVert, and stuff for Drew Holiday. I don't know why I said it like that. I apologize. Drew Holiday. Sign John Collins, and then re-sign Tobias and Wu. And then see if you can get some guys on, you know, vet minimums and stuff like that. So, I think here's where I want to ask you, O2, because I'll have John Collins as part of mine as well. Drew Holiday, thoughts on Drew Holiday and adding him to this team?
Yeah, I mean, Drew was terrific last season, and I'm less concerned about his game aging poorly than, you know, some of the other guys around his age who are coming off of injuries, because I mean, Drew's game today is just fine. Like, if he's not giving you 17 a game next season, he's still going to hit threes at a high level. He's still going to give you the defense. He's still going to give you reliable ball handling. So I guess one, I don't even know if Portland would want to trade Drew Holiday. Like, I kind of look at that package, and if I'm Portland, honestly, I'm just going to say no to that. And then if you're the Pistons, you probably still need shooting too if you're giving up Duncan. I think this kind of solves some problems and then creates other problems because you're still going to need shooting from somewhere. But I like John Collins. You bring back Tobias and Wu. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I still think you probably need some stuff. If you could fill out the roster with some vet minimum and get like some real shooting, then I like that a lot better. But I love Drew as a player. And if you can get him for that, then it's worth considering.
Yeah, your thoughts on Drew Holiday, Shawn?
Oh, I've always liked him. But again, he'll be 36 in 3 days. I just looked it up. I knew he was 35. I wanted to know when he was going to turn 36. I'm with Omari on the fact, he doesn't rely on a ton of wiggle. It's more sort of know-how and strength. So his game is more age-proof in a way. And he can shoot for sure. Is he the same defensive presence? I mean, he's a good player. He's a good player, and you would welcome him in the rotation for sure. He's another great locker, especially if you had to, I know it says you keep Harris, but if you had to lose Harris, he'd be a great replacement in the locker room for Harris in that way.
So listen, I keep hearing this with John Collins. So Blog Pistons, you're absolutely correct. Most likely Detroit will operate over the cap. I do want to just say there is a reasonable path to under the cap. Like, I've gone over it with Kyle Metz multiple times. Even to get to 20 million, you could just dump, yes, it would require losing Tobias Harris potentially or something like that. But even to get to 18 million so that you could beat the non-tax MLE, there are fairly easy ways to do that if you wanted to beat the non-tax MLE. Listen, I think John Collins probably gets more than the non-tax MLE, but here's the thing. There's only one team that can give him that's going to be a contender next year. That's not true. There's two. If he wants to play, he could go to the Lakers, who will have cap space, but the Nets and the Bulls aren't competing. They're kind of entering rebuilding. Now, the Clippers could give him more than that. So yes, you could also orchestrate a sign and trade with the Clippers as well. Over on Game Theory, we did the Clippers offseason, and what we thought is because the Clippers want to keep their books clean moving forward, we thought that maybe they give John Collins a 1-year, $25 million deal. So then would Collins rather take that? Or if you're the Pistons, what if you offered him the full 4-year non-tax MLE? In general, I agree that not all of these players are going to be available for the non-tax MLE, but I think 1 or 2 of them are going to be. Because a lot of teams will only have the non-tax MLE to sign them, and some teams won't want to use them. So I had mentioned Collins in mine. Here's the fun one I did. I traded for Bryce Sensabaugh. O2, what do you think about trading for Bryce Sensabaugh? I just went for, I went and looked through all the players who made less than the Truder trade exception that's left, and he was the funnest name I could come up with as a guy that could come in and score a bunch of buckets off the bench. I don't know why Utah would want to trade him. Maybe they just have so many young players that you'd be able to get him for a reasonable number. But that was my fun idea, and a name that hasn't gotten brought up was Bryce Sensabaugh.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that's flown under the radar a little bit just because, I just don't know how many people were really following the Utah Jazz last season. But he averaged 15 a game, 46% overall, 38% from 3. I don't know how he is defensively. I will say that. But just the idea of having a 6'6" wing who can come in and get you a bucket, come off the bench, potentially feel like a Karis LeVert-like role. I like the idea of that. Like you said, I also have no clue what that would actually take from an asset standpoint. So, a lot of what ifs there, but I like the idea of him as a player in general.
Shawn, any random thoughts on Bryce Sensabaugh as I just randomly pull him into this conversation?
I like him. I like his game. Yeah. I'm for anybody who can go get a bucket with a little bit of, make contested shots. How about that? That's why I would not be in on John Collins. He can hit the three. He's athletic, but, he's not, we saw what Tobias Harris could do, right? I'm not saying they need to keep him necessarily, but he could late in the game, back it down and go get a bucket. Can Collins do that at the same size? And he's more athletic than Harris? No, he can't. So I'm out on him. No, he doesn't defend.
All right. I think that was through everybody that submitted something. If I missed something, guys, I am really sorry. It's been a little bit crazy. I tried to organize things. I tried to vet things. So at least where we could talk about, is this going to be over under the cap or not cap, but like the tax and stuff like that. So yes, Blog Piston says, don't forget the trade exceptions that some teams have to sign those players to assign it. Absolutely. You're absolutely right that those will come into play as well. And as I mentioned, Detroit has one of those that they could potentially use. They have some of it left over from the Schroeder one. Some of those expire here in the next month. Some will go on to the deadline next year. But thank you for everybody that submitted something. We really, really appreciate you guys. Okay, we can talk about these names real quick. So I didn't do the Thunder thing because second apron, aggregate players, can they get under it to then make the moves? All of those things. I would be a fan of Detroit going after either one of Aaron Wiggins or Isaiah Joe. And if they could get both, I would be even more for it. Shawn, agree, disagree? What do you think?
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, shooting, ball handling. And if you get a little bit of defense, right, then you're good.
Thank you for bringing this up, Ethan. O2, your thoughts on Isaiah Joe and or Aaron Wiggins?
Yeah, I don't know if OKC is looking to give those guys up, given that they're affordable in the grand scheme of their not affordable roster and, play some pretty specific roles. But they also have so many guards that I just don't know if it's sustainable to have all those guys. And, Case with Wallace, if you want to bring him back. And they probably got the deepest guard room in the NBA. So I don't know if there are options, but I mean, absolutely a guy like Isaiah Joe, just an absolute lights out shooter, would be great in Detroit. So, I'm curious to see what OKC's offseason looks like because they do have some overarching stuff that they have to solve long term.
They quite literally can't sign their 2 draft picks right now because they have 15 players on the roster. So I think the idea is they decide to keep Lou Dort and Hartenstein, whatever, and then the players they have to move off of potentially are Joe and Wiggins. You do mention though, they are on great contracts. Michael says, great show. Have a good week. And Omari, good time off. Thank you so much. Craig, appreciate the awesome content from Sydney, Australia at 4 a.m. in the morning. I actually knew that one because my other podcast co-host lives in Australia, so I kind of understand the time difference there. Chuck says, as always, great show. Thank you. Again, thank you to everybody who took the time to put together an off-season plan. We really, really appreciate it. Make sure you go check out that website. It really is cool, guys. You can, and if you're not even a Pistons fan and you're listening to this, I don't know why, but you can, if you're maybe a fan of another team as well, it has all 30 teams there. And again, if you find something that doesn't work quite right, let me know. I will pass that along. Hopefully this is something that will continue to expand out and grow and something people can use to just have different, go through the off season. So thank you for all of you coming in. Shawn, as always, our episodes only get better whenever you are here. So we appreciate you very, very much. Thank you. O2, take it away, my guy.
Yeah, big thanks to Shawn for joining us. And obviously, I feel like we're getting into the busiest part of the offseason now with the draft coming up and then free agency and then summer league. So we'll have you back on soon for sure. And with that, I'll close us out. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and a big shout out to West Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.